Hi there. You know, we're coming up on July the 4th, 2017. A lot of Americans are going to be celebrating. I am. Hope you are. What are we going to be celebrating? Well, the date marks the signing of this particular document right here. Mr. Jefferson's words, conveying the thoughts of himself and Mr. Adams, Dr. Franklin, and all those other patriots that gathered together in Philadelphia that hot summer 241 years ago. I'd like to read some of it to you. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect for the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes of the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such forms as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed would dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of this imperial president is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations having in direct object the establishment of absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has demanded that officials of the government profess total loyalty to his person rather than to the Constitution and the American people. He has aroused within our countrymen intense hatred for different groups of fellow citizens, unleashing the savagery of racism which we as a people have struggled so long and hard to overcome. In direct contravention of his own personal pledge, he has diligently sought to remove from our citizens the guarantee of health care, condemning many among us to untreated ill health and even death. He has conspired with our nation's greatest enemy, the re-emerging Russian Empire and its tyrannical czar, to subvert our electoral processes. I could go on, but I hope you get the idea. There's a whole lot of similarity between George III and Donald Trump. our founding fathers would have been very familiar with our situation. What are we going to do about it? Now, first, let's start by going back to Mr. Jefferson's document. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. That they are absolved of all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And that, as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may do. And for the support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Well, our solutions may not need to be as drastic as those back in 1776, but it is pretty clear that we as an American people need to re-examine those institutions which have heretofore governed us. The present tyrant has brought the matter to a head, but you all know the main reason he was elected is that we're very much aware that we're long past due for some major changes in this country. As Mr. Jefferson says, a people may long suffer before abolishing their accustomed institutions, but when a government becomes destructive, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government. Well, this government has become destructive. And it's not just Donald Trump, and it didn't just happen overnight. For almost 40 years, our nation has been off course. Wealthy individuals and corporations have subverted the legislative process, making the government servant of their interests rather than those of the American people. Large banks have been permitted to rape our economy, and the leaders of those institutions still hold positions of wealth and power, while the cost of their crimes is being borne by the American people. In a typical American family, both parents have to work at least full-time, if they can even get decent jobs, and still cannot achieve the standard of living of their parents. Our youth must mortgage their futures and or bankrupt their parents just to achieve an adequate education. Veterans maimed physically and psychologically in frivolous wars do not get the care that they were promised. Too many of our citizens languish in prisons, run at great profit by large wealthy corporations. Measures are in process to return women and non-white Americans to roles of second-class citizens within our nation. An increasing percentage of our wealth is in the hands of a few. Well, I've got a whole lot more here, and I suspect you've probably got some I haven't even thought of. add this all up, this is tyranny. It is our right, it is our duty to alter or abolish this government and to replace it with one focused on the true purpose of securing our rights as human beings. We can do this, and we may not even have to pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We can still vote, and we can make our voices heard. Mr. Jefferson told us that government derives its true powers from the consent of the governed. Let's start by making the thieves and con men who have stolen our government know we do not consent.